July, a fantastic morning. We have a beautiful service ahead for you, and I'm so grateful to Vivian Morrison, who is stepping in to do our platform assistant responsibilities this morning. So welcome to those of you who are here in person. Welcome to those of you online. And Vivian, if you'd get us started, that'd be fantastic.
Welcome to Unity on the North Shore Sunday service. Whether you're joining in the sanctuary or joining us virtually on Zoom today, or watching us later on Facebook or YouTube, we're glad you're with us. Today, Reverend Kurt continues our Sunday lesson series titled Sweet Release. He'll share how to release the past so we can receive the good arising from new possibilities. Olga Laluz is our prayer chaplain, and we're especially blessed to welcome Bobby Wilson and Dennis Lexian once again. We are so grateful that we're here and for the amazing gifts and talents. So let's get started with prayer. Holy Presence, we know that in God, we can never be separate from love, from truth, from infinite intelligence, and the source of all good. We gather here in the sacred time to open our hearts and minds to the one power and the one presence. We gratefully receive the energies of divine light and love pouring in and through us. And we affirm, we are here this morning for a divine purpose. We trust that that purpose is now being fulfilled, for we know that we are now in the presence of pure being, immersed in the Holy Spirit of life, love, and wisdom. And so it is. Amen. And now Bobby and Dennis will lead us in our opening song.
Will your heart and soul say yes? Will your spirit still say yes? There is more that is required of thee. Will your heart and soul say yes? Yes, yes. My heart says yes, 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 yes. My soul says yes, yes. Yes, my spirit says yes.
Welcome again. Unity is a positive, practical approach for spiritual living based on the teachings of Jesus and the power of prayer. We believe there is truth and beauty in every spiritual tradition, and so we honor the many paths to the one God. Wherever you are on your spiritual journey, know that you are always welcome here. At Unity on the North Shore, our purpose is to create a safe space where people are empowered to take risks and live their deepest truth. We do this by acting on principles of inclusion, encouraging creative spiritual exploration, embracing innovative possibilities, collaborating to create community and personal growth, and living truth principles. If this is your first time, first Sunday with us, we want to extend a loving welcome to you. Upon discovering unity, many of us were surprised to learn there was a spiritual community that thought and believed the same way, the same things we did. For me, it felt like coming home. We hope your experience this morning is equally powerful and that you will return. And now let's welcome Bobby and Dennis again as they lead us in the group's morning song.
I invite you to stand if you feel comfortable and join us in singing, "This is the day that the Lord has made." This is the day that the Lord has made, that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it, and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. Oh, this is the day that the Lord has made. One more time. This is the day that the Lord has made, that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it, and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. Oh, this is the day that the Lord has made.
I'm alive and awake. Thank you, Bobby and Dennis. That was fabulous. So most of you know that my name is Olga LaLuz, and I am serving as your prayer chaplain this morning. Let's begin with our daily word, and let my words be your words. So today we're going to focus on journey. My life's journey begins and ends in the heart of God. I feel excited at the beginning of a journey. I really do. And thinking about the adventures and the beautiful sights and the fascinating people, I just feel pure joy. I will find that at my journey's end that I will have thoroughly enjoyed some of the beautiful things I have experienced. But even as I look forward to reaching my destination, however, I remain alert and open to the adventures and the insights that await the discovery along the way. My faith tells me that my spiritual journey began in the heart of God, long before my human birth. In childhood, I looked outward, longing for the adventures that would become waypoints on my journey to maturity. Now I journey inward, longing for the spiritual home I never really left. I am learning that even the most ordinary day can become an opportunity to realize that the heart of God is present everywhere. The Lord will keep you going out and you're coming in from this time on and forever. Psalms 121, verse 8. So let's continue focusing on prayer. What a wonderful thing to do. I just love to pray. So as we continue focusing on prayer, we go within and we think about our loved ones and our friends and family, and we hold them dear as we affirm the presence of God in every moment. And we release all, knowing that God is present. Let's just take a moment and receive God's presence within us, even though God never leaves. Just experience it. Dear Holy Spirit, as we continue focusing on our life's journey, we welcome the journey that Unity on the North Shore is embarking on. We bless all that we have shared within this building and welcome the adventures and the love and insights that await us in our next spiritual home. Knowing that our spiritual journey began in the heart of God, we embrace with certainty that it will continue leading us to opportunities that will deepen our faith and love of God in our next home. With faith and enthusiasm, we affirm that all is well, and it is well because we believe. Thank you, UNS Board, and all other members who are involved in leading us during this letting go and receiving journey. What an exciting time, and how blessed we are. I now invite you to request a personal prayer. For those of you who are here in the sanctuary in person, I want to remind you that you can place your written prayers in the prayer box in the sanctuary. And for those of you online, you may enter prayer requests in the chat box and/or use our website prayer link, which will also be posted there. And how magnificent it is that these prayers will be prayed for 30 days by our prayer team, and followed by an additional 30 days of prayer by Silent Unity. Also, now that we're back in the sanctuary, remember that the prayer chaplains will be in the back of the sanctuary by the candle to pray with you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for blessing us with your presence. Thank you, God, for always being in our hearts. Amen.
There was a time in my life I thought I had to do it all for myself. I didn't know the grace of God was sufficient. I didn't know the love of God was at hand. But now I can say, if you are discouraged, struggling just to make it through another day, you gotta let it go. Just let it go. And this is what you have to say. I release and I let go. Holy Spirit, run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith, I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God.
Thank you, Bobby. Thank you, Dennis. Time for something new. So that title came to me some weeks ago, and as I've been thinking about, what I would say this week and how to talk about change, something new, we're ready for some change, I just kind of felt exhausted. Like, haven't we been through enough? So I want to start out. Let's just, and for those of you who are tuning in on Zoom, I would love for you to, if you have some response, to type that in the chat box. And I would invite the member of our Livestream team, I think Jans, who's watching that chat stream, if you would go ahead and share those out in the room so we can have some connection between both our in-person and our live folks, that would be great. So just, what's some of the change that you sort of feel like, just wish that were done. I wish that were over. What are you sitting in right now? Anybody? Go ahead, Sharon, just call it out. Another surge of COVID. Like, oh yeah, that's a change that we are just tired of dealing with, isn't it? Yeah. Every week it's a little bit different here. We have different people who show up on Sundays. We're trying to figure out how to balance a virtual experience with an online experience. Like, wow, that's a lot of change. What else? What other changes are you just kind of sitting in and weary of? Just call out if you've got a... A surge of spirit, yes. That's one we can get excited about, right? There is a surge of spirit behind all of it. There's this movement of spirit that Bobby just tapped into really beautifully. By the way, great arrangement. I felt it. Yeah, what else? What other changes? Anybody zooming in? Gratitude for good health. These are nice changes, yeah. Those of us who have been able to sort of sit in that wholeness that we know is our very nature. Olga? People coming in and out of our lives. Right, our social interactions have changed so deeply. Folks that we might have been really close to, after having to separate for so long, maybe that has sort of fallen away, but there are new experiences and new folks who we have different kinds of connections that are bringing new awareness and new growth. What else? What are the changes been absorbing? Carol? From another state. Yeah, at first you were talking about states, I thought it was state of mind or being, but I know you have been traveling a lot this last time. So, to get sort of grounded and be present to where we are in the midst of all the change, whether or not we've been moving around from location to location, where we are has changed, the consciousness, the awareness of that. Anyone else? Waking up to climate change. Yeah, so many changes that are so evident. Every news report, it feels like there's some other weather-borne disaster that the nation, the world, the planet is trying to integrate. And how do we show up for that? How do we be present for that? How do we bring a spiritual context to that? Those are all the kinds of the changes that are just really roiling us. And yet here I have a talk that I'm titled, It's Time for a Change, time for something new. So what is that new? What is that change? Where I tend to turn most often when I'm looking to find some kind of grounding or some kind of perspective is typically the Bible and the teachings of Jesus especially. And I couldn't help but sort of recall the story of Jesus' first miracle. And because part of what I've been wrestling with is, okay, how do we know that it's time for something new? What is it? I mean, because so often in my own journey, it's sort of like I have this longing for something new, but sometimes I feel like I'm running away from what's old rather than standing in it and resolving it. So what's the difference between running away and being present too, and how do you decide which is which? Whether or not standing where I am is going to bring about the kind of change, sort of facing up to maybe what I haven't fully integrated into my understanding, or is it time for something completely different, to sort of walk away from the way I have been doing it and look for a different experience? So I think I just found the story of Jesus' first miracle to be maybe a source of some insight and inspiration. So this is from the book of John, chapter 2. On the third day, so that's the answer. When is it time to change? The third day. It's on the third day. That's the balance of what I'm going to be talking about. So how do we know when the third day gets here? On the third day, there was a wedding at Cana in Galilee, and Jesus' mother was there. Jesus and his students had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine had run out, Jesus' mother said to him, "There's no more wine." Jesus said, "What does that have to do with us? My hour isn't here yet." His mother told the waiters, "Do whatever he says." There were 6 stone water jars standing there used by the Jews for rites of purification. Each held 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus said to them, "Fill the jars with water," and they filled them to the brim. Jesus said, "Pour some out and give it to the wedding planner." They did so, and the wedding planner tasted the water that had become wine. He didn't understand where it had come from, though the waiters who had poured the water knew. The wedding planner called for the groom and said, quote, "People bring out the good wine first, and then, after the guests have been drinking, they get the cheap stuff. But you kept the good wine until now." This was the first of the signs Jesus made at Cana in Galilee. He revealed his glory, and his students trusted him. So time for something new. So what's the significance of that third day? What had been going on in Jesus' life the last couple of days? And how does that sort of compare to our experience as we prepare to move into creating space for something new in our lives and our experience? The first day we talk about in this book of John, actually John is sort of relating to Jewish inquisitors who have been sent to find out what his work is all about. You know, John the Baptist, the guy that eats honey and nuts out in the woods, and he's kind of the wild man baptizing people. Well, as he is relating this story, John has encountered Jesus and has just baptized Jesus. That's where we are, sort of at the beginning of day 1. John has baptized Jesus. And he sees in that moment, remember the dove flies up, and Jesus heard the voice. John didn't. John only saw the evidence of this dove. But Jesus heard the voice, "This is my son in whom I am well pleased." Jesus is sort of getting called out into something greater. I think that's, I'm not talking about 24-hour days when I'm talking about day 3, right? So day 1 in our experience is that moment in our awareness when we are called out by a vision that's greater than ourselves. When we have that sense that arises from within that I am meant for something greater than this. There is more, there's greater purpose for me to be stepping into. And at that moment, we don't necessarily have a clear picture of what that looks like, but you have the sense that there's something more that's calling you forward. It's sort of a divine discontent, I've heard it called. That's day 1, when we have that sense that something new, something greater, something more magnificent is being called of us to express more fully in our greatness. Day 1. Day 2 is actually kind of interesting because as Jesus is kind of walking around, it's when he first encounters both Andrew and Peter, right? As he's sort of gathering his disciples around us. And what we're told in Charles Fillmore's understanding of what the metaphysics of that means is that Jesus is gathering in around him the strength and the faith to be able to fulfill that greater calling. First 2 disciples he meets on the second day. As we start to prayerfully ask, what is this greater purpose? What is this vision? What is this that I'm being called into? As we start to get sort of a sense of what that is, the first space, the second day, for us to start working on that spiritually is to call forth those powers within that rely on strength and faith. Strength and faith will move us into it, right? Third day, he encounters Philip. And Philip represents, in Unity's understanding, power on that third day. And power and Unity understanding, it's here, right? It's the voice. It's the power that our word has to bring forth truth, to bring forth that which are. So third day is power. It's got strength, faith. Third day is power. It's when we really start to engage in being able to speak the truth of who we're being. So that's our prep. day 1, 2, 3. Third day is also the day that Jesus is invited to this wedding in Cana, right? And it's at the wedding in Cana when I believe the change really begins to happen. Something new begins to be born in Jesus. And I love that in the story, it's his mother who sort of nudges him, right? There's no wine, Jesus. Nothing to do with me. It is not my time. I am not ready to live into this yet. I am not feeling it just yet. And yet when his mother speaks the word, sort of that intuitive insight that happens with us, that divine sort of feminine aspect that arises out of a greater sense of guidance from the divine, right? And he doesn't question it because he's got the strength and the faith and the power sort of behind him. He doesn't question his mother's call, and instantly he starts giving instructions, and waters turn to wine. I once worked with an Episcopal priest who was really disappointed that this was how Jesus debuted, right? That he did this party trick. Was how that's how Father D'Amico regarded it, that Jesus does this party trick, turning water to wine. But I much prefer the interpretation of Thomas More, that his view is that sort of this running out of wine is indicative of sort of where we are as a human species, as a human race. Like we have lost our vitality, our appreciation of complexity, that we're standing in a space of kind of being bankrupt from those pieces. And as I look around at the world now, there's so much that would suggest that. You know, there's so many spaces in which we're feeling depleted and tired and just not really knowing which way to go or what to go on. We've lost that sort of intoxicating effect that wine represents. And Moore goes on to say that, you know, this is just the beginning. Jesus sort of evolves. And by the time we get to the Last Supper, what wine has come to represent is vitality and life and those very qualities. So this is sort of the beginning of a process in which we engage into that living into a greater truth, a greater capacity for knowing the divine in our own lives. It's the beginning of it. So that wine is actually a way to sort of rejuvenate and restore and renew. And it doesn't have to be, you know, the alcoholic beverage. Wine is sort of the thoughts and the energies upon which we feast and which we imbibe so that we can be more present to the goodness and the greatness and the joy that's available to us as we start to live out our deepest truth. So it's day 3. I really believe it's day 3 for us here at Unity on the North Shore. For us, at some level, I would say even individually, I would say as you're, in fact, let's sort of go there now. So just as you're sort of calling out the challenges or the spaces or the changes that you were tired of, I'd like you now to sort of think about, okay, what's the wine you're being called to know? What's the wine you're being called to transform? What's the potential that's within you that you would like to see come into fuller expression through the power of faith and the power of strength and the power of power, right? What's waiting within you right now to come forth in greater measure, in greater way? And Jan, again, those of you who are zooming in, what's the potential within you that you would love to see coming into fuller expression, fuller creation? Humanity is waking up to its oneness. I see a lot of evidence of that. And I wasn't going to go here, but then I listened to Vivian read off who we are as a spiritual community, take risks. I've been doing some deep work around anti-racism and really beginning to recognize how white body supremacy, that's a term that I've just come across with, because that supremacy is not about white sheets. That's a lot of us, when we think of white supremacy, we think of Ku Klux Klan. But white body supremacy sort of lives in white bodies, right? And supremacy is the water that we all swim in, regardless of color. We all adapt to it. We all live by it without really a lot of awareness, in white bodies, a lot of awareness of its effect at all. In bodies of culture, that's the other word I'm using, and the language I'm using is out of some amazing work by Resma. I quoted him last week, My Grandmother's Hands. If you haven't looked into that, it's a beautiful sort of way to sort of dive into this. But what I'm recognizing is that the ways in which I believe we're being called to know our oneness with one another. And at first, for white bodies, I'm going to speak for white body because that's the way that I experience the world. At first, demands that I have a greater recognition and awareness about the impact that walking around in this skin has. Right? So here's a silly little stupid thing that I've come to notice as I've been working with a couple of groups on this, right? So I live in a fairly affluent part of Evanston, mostly white, and I was out for a walk this week, just walking around, and one of the neighbors has been doing a lot of renovation work, and I've been really curious. I've just been watching the house and watching the progress and watching the workers, and they're getting close to being finished, so they're working on the landscaping. And there was a crew of, I'm imagining they were Hispanic, I'm imagining they were Mexican kind of landscape guys. And they had a bobcat because they were digging out the trench for the new driveway. And so I'm standing back there, I'm approaching on the sidewalk, and I'm standing back and not want to get run over by the bobcat. I'm thinking, okay, well, when they get further up the driveway, I'll just sneak in behind, be safe, but also be able to get a really close look at what's going on because I want to see the development, right? And so as I'm standing there, the foreman sees me. Older white guy in his rich white neighborhood. They shut down the bobcat. Everybody stopped working so that I could walk behind and have my little safe piece, right? Now, I don't know that the reason they stopped was because there was a white body there. They may have done it out of safety for anyone. But what I do know is that the impact that my white body has can sort of trigger a first response about how do we make sure this guy's comfortable. We don't want to tick him off. That's the impact that me living in white skin has in any mixed group that I might walk into, right? That's because that's just the dominant culture that we have lived in for 4 centuries, way before this was a nation, right? So it never occurred to me until this little interaction. I could have approached that job site. I could have seen the bobcat and walked around the driveway. Never occurred to me that that was even an option. That sidewalk was mine. It's my neighborhood. It's just one of those tiny little insights that helps me to remember that the work of oneness is not the responsibility of people who live in bodies of culture. The work of knowing oneness really has to begin in me. And it has to go really deep. I have to be willing to challenge the assumptions that I'm not even know I'm making before I can ever begin to bring a different consciousness to the interactions I have. And this is why I feel like it's scary for me to bring this up, because since I arrived here 11 years ago at UT on the North Shore, I've been like, this place is amazing. We have like the secret sauce. We're so diverse. We have black, we have Hispanic, we have white, we have gay, we have straight. We even have a history of that in leadership, that has been just a huge blessing. And my whole objective has been, how do we replicate that? How do we build on that? How do we show the rest of the world how to be like us, right? And what I'm starting to understand is that culture really arises out of the incredible resilience and grace and strength and forgiveness of the people of color who have been part of this community from the beginning. And us white bodies, we're unity, so yes, we love everybody and we sort of believe in oneness. I think we do get some points for that. At the same time, it's our work to make sure that we're creating a different kind of environment than has ruled this nation for centuries, right? It's our work to go more deeply and begin to recognize. So here's another example of the kind of change that I'm wanting to embody, right? And how screwed up, I don't want to say I'm screwed up, but yeah, I'm kind of screwed up around race stuff. So I'm doing all this deep work, and I'm having all these great insights about how it's really my responsibility to understand the ways in which white body supremacy is affecting my life and how I benefit from that, right? It's up to me. And so I was having a conversation with a member of the congregation who I was wanting to make an amends for any way in which I have been ignorant and me even unknowingly somehow perpetuating that same dynamic, right? Wanting to have this really heartfelt. I was so eager. I was so earnest. I could feel the earnestness. And I closed that little statement of apology. I was feeling so good about how I was making this bridge. And I closed it by saying this: I want you to feel free, feel confident to call me on my stuff. Like when I'm coming from that white supremacy place, I want you to feel free to call on me. And right, the expression changed completely. Before, this person was listening and kind of open to it, and the expression changed completely. And it wasn't until a couple of days later, and kind of debriefing it with some white friends, that I realized all that I was trying to do in creating that bridge, I had just completely swept away. Because what I'm saying when I say, okay, I want you to call me on my stuff, is you be strong. You be vulnerable. You open yourself up to be rejection. You make me comfortable and show me how I can do this better. I completely undermined the very kind of dynamic that I'm so wanting to. That's why it's so important that we start looking not at what our intention is, but what our impact is. How do my words, how does my white body shape the experience that I'm walking into, even if I'm not aware of how it's doing it? How do I start questioning that stuff? It's time for change. It's time for change on so many levels. And I've once again done a whole lot of self-indulgent preaching on Sunday, so let me try and bring it back down to something that maybe is more universal. Certainly I'm hoping that those of us who are sitting here with white bodies might have a curiosity about how it is I can be more of a presence of equity, how it can be more of a presence of creating a loving environment and living into the oneness that we know we were born to express. I'm hoping that happens. But I also know that for bodies of color, there is also still deep healing work to be able to sort of stand fully in the truth of who you are and who we need. So if I could create anything, I've been pressed a lot by our board and by our Right and Perfect Home team to come up with what's the vision. Where are we going? Unity on the North Shore is on this edge where we're about to create something new, an environment where some people are online and some people are in the room, an environment where we not be meeting in the same place, an environment, there's lots of change happening, and I've been asked for a vision. As close as I can come to that vision right now, it's not quite as clear as changing water to wine, but it certainly is about how it is that we can, as a community, begin to embody more fully this principle of oneness. How do we become allies in a greater way? How do we become a community that not only stands for anti-racist attitudes, but actually creates a community that others look to for how to emulate sort of these qualities of love? Because I think it's in it. I think it's in our DNA. I think it's work that we've been doing certainly in the last 40 or 50 years. How old is the church? 75 now? We're coming up on 75. Even in the early years. Anyway, it's in our DNA, and I think it's the vision that I would hold for us is that we can continue to perpetuate that dynamic and expand upon it in a way that transforms us first as individuals, but also transforms the spiritual community and actually even beyond the walls here. Okay, so that didn't go back to the more universal yet. Okay, here's what I'm wanting to say around the universal piece. It's day 3. All of us have been sitting and preparing and finding the strength and the courage and the power to speak truth more fully, to know it more completely in our own spiritual practices. It's day 3. And so I'm going to challenge you to, as we move into meditation, really hold a space for Spirit to reveal what is in it, what is yours in this moment, in this time, to bring forth, to transform, from what's the water in your life, the potentiality for greater good. And I know I've been talking a lot about oneness and racism, but greater good can show up in a whole lot of ways. It can show up in a personal physical healing. It can show up in emotional healing. It can show up in a prosperity demonstration. All of that is water to wine, right? That transformative, transubstantive energy can be brought forth. So what I'd like to do as we move into a time of meditation is for you to be able to identify the water in your life, the water that's sort of already prepared in the jars, in the jugs, ready to be transformed by the faith and the strength and the power that you hold within you as divine creations of the Most High. Yeah? So, Bobby, I know you probably already have something planned, but could I suggest that for our intro to meditation, and I forgot I got my back to the camera, I don't know how I do both, that you reprise the song about yes, the yes song. I thought that was just a beautiful way to sort of create a space and open our hearts so that we can be more fully in that energy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Will your heart and soul say yes? Will your spirit still say yes? There is more that is required of thee. Will your heart and soul say yes? Yes, yes, my heart says yes. My soul says yes. And my spirit says yes.
And quiet reflection, I invite you to just fully take in that energy of yes. That you have within you everything required to fulfill this calling of your heart. You have within you all of the courage, all of the strength, all of the faith to take risks and live your deepest truth. For you are a child of the Most High. There is no dream in your heart. There is no aspiration of your spirit that you cannot fully accomplish. We are each of us here to live from an awareness of our own divinity, created to transform any obstacle, to change any belief that would block us from fully expressing the kind of love, the kind of acceptance, the kind of capacity for strength and resilience that we see demonstrated in Jesus' life. Each of us has our own role to fulfill in the bringing forth of the kingdom of heaven. And it begins by simply saying yes. So in these next few moments of quiet reflection, I invite you to just simply say yes as a mantra. Hold it in your heart. Feel the incredible expansiveness that this affirmative energy magnifies in your soul. Affirm yes, yes, yes. So very gently now, I would invite you to begin to return your attention to your physical body. Maybe wiggle your fingers and your toes. Maybe feel your feet on the floor, or whatever it is that helps you be more fully present. And we're going to close this meditation with a call and response. It's an affirmation. So I want you to speak these words aloud, whether here in the sanctuary or you're there at home watching on Zoom, Facebook. Speak these words aloud. It gives them power. With faith, strength, and power together. Strength and power. I spring forth with a mighty zeal together. I spring forth with a mighty zeal to do all that ought to be done by me. All that ought to be done by me. Yes, yes, yes. So it is, and so we let it be. Amen. How's that for easy homework? Yes, that's it. That's your homework this week. Say yes. Say yes. Speaking of yes, this is the time in our service when we receive our tithes and our offerings. So I invite you to say yes to giving generously. Unity on the North Shore is a tithing ministry. That means that we give back 10% of all the unrestricted gifts that we receive to those companies or individuals or organizations who we see doing great work in the world that are in alignment with our principles and with our practices. So, a couple of ways you can give, whether you're here or in the sanctuary, you can give by text. Set an account up at 815-827-6052. It's really, really easy the first time, and then after that, you just text GIVE to that number and specify the amount. You can also give online at our website, www.unityns.org, and there's a donate button at the top of every page. We have a number of different processors to make it easy and convenient for you. Or, of course, you can send checks to 3434 Central Street in Evanston at 60201. So let's say yes together and back that up. Oh, yes, thank you, Ruth. For those of you here in the sanctuary, if you're giving a tangible physical gift, there's a basket in the back, a bowl in the back, so that we're maintaining safe distance and not passing bags back and forth. So please give on your way out. That's it. So let's speak together our prosperity declaration. Divine love as me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Amen.
You've got to accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative, and latch on to the affirmative, and don't mess with Mr. In Between. You've got to spread joy up to the maximum, bring gloom down to a minimum. Otherwise, pandemonium liable to walk upon the scene. To illustrate my last remark, Jonah in the whale and Noah in the ark. What did they say just when everything looked so dark? Man, they said you gotta accentuate the positive and eliminate the negative, and latch on to the affirmative, and don't mess with Mr. In Between. To illustrate my last remark, Jonah in the whale and Noah in the ark. What did they say just when everything seemed so dark? Man, they said you gotta accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative, latch on to the affirmative, and don't mess with Mr. In Between. No, don't mess with Mr. In Between. No, don't mess with Mr. In Between. Dennis.
Our service for announcements. There's a script here somewhere. Tell me what's on the screen. I'll wing it. Midweek meditation service. So this is a beautiful time. I think this week is Reverend Candace Lucas, I think, will be meeting here on site. And it's about a half-hour meditation experience. Christina and I and Candace have been taking turns throughout the summer. A beautiful time to just come away in the middle of the week and get a little bit of a refresher, a break. If it's not too hot, it'll be on the patio. And if it is too hot outside, most of the rest of the building is air conditioned. So I'm sure we can find a cool space on Wednesday. So come Wednesday, be a part of that. You can register online, although it's not required. You can just show up. Next Saturday is this wonderful celebration that we're calling Celebrating Words of Wisdom. And you'll be able to join Livestream or in person. It'll be here in the sanctuary. This is really a cool event, and I think I can't emphasize enough how beautiful it is in terms of building community. In fact, rebuilding community in a time when we have been so separate and so disparate and so apart. Sharon Myers, who is a wonderful editor and writer, has been conducting these classes that she's calling micro memoirs. And so members of our community have been writing about just instances in their experience that have been really transformative. I think spiritual principles may be reflected, but it didn't have to be about that. But they're really deeply personal stories. We've been marketing it as like, if you listen to the Moth Radio on NPR, it's kind of like that they tell these beautiful stories. Then we have asked other members of the congregation to create artwork illustrating those. Some of those are from different generations. So this whole project has been about really building bonds of connection, sharing stories more deeply. And so this is going to be sort of like the public reading, and I would really invite you to, am I too forward of the lights? I have to remember that stuff. A public sort of reading of those stories. Beautiful time to learn more about some other members of the community and the congregation, and just help us to, I think, rebuild some of the bonds that have been lost over this time of social distancing. It's also a way for us to begin to experiment about how do we build spiritual community in an environment that's virtual and in person. How are we going to do that going forward? So just lots of beautiful potential happening here. It's this Saturday. Get your tickets online. They're $25. I think we have been also, there are some who have bought angel tickets, so if the cost is a prohibitor for you, get in touch with us and we'll make sure that we get that covered. It really is about connection more than anything else. We're wanting to create just a deeper awareness of one another in our stories and how that's a beautiful collective. So that's Saturday, our celebrating words of wisdom. Oh, and I left out the quarantones. So Alyssa Foster and Jay Bag. Alyssa you would recognize as one of our choir members. She's a really wonderful soprano. She and her husband have meeting with some neighbors over this time of quarantine, and they've just been doing this garage band thing, working up songs. They are fantastic, and this will be their first public performance. So they'll be here on the sanctuary. Another way to sort of build connection with members we know and some of the gifts that they have. So come and hear the quarantones at our Celebrating Words of Wisdom this Saturday. Also know that we were meeting after service for a virtual garden chat. That garden chat is continuing, but it's not happening on Sundays anymore. It's been moved to Monday. It's a virtual experience. Please remember there is a new link for garden chat. So you need to register. Register online. There's a garden chat banner right on the homepage. You'll get that link. And then you can use that link to subscribe. We understand some people have had trouble getting in, so make sure that the correct link, it'll be emailed you right away if you register. Kate, what are you waving about?
So no garden chat tomorrow. Sharon will be out of town, but we'll start up again the following Monday. I will be sending out a reminder to everybody via email tomorrow.
So for those of you who are online, everything I just said is on hiatus for tomorrow. There's no garden chat tomorrow on the 26th, but it will resume on a week from Monday. So still need the new link. And once you get the link, it's the same link, but it's not the same link we were using for the last year. All right, that's it. As always, check the website. We keep that up to date. Facebook, watch our account there. Become a Facebook follower. That'll be helpful. It's the best way to stay in touch with us. Or you can subscribe to our e-blast, which also has a sort of ongoing inspiration and calendar. That's it. So Bobby and Dennis, if they'll lead us in the peace song, please stand if you're able. And Olga will close us with a prayer of protection.
Let there be peace on earth,
and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God
as creator, family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, this be my joyous vow, to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
The light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of God protects us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am presence. Wherever we are, God is. I am divine. Happy Sunday, everybody, and thank you for being here. What a service! Woo, 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 woo! It was fantastic.
Am I still on Zoom? Can I talk to him? Hey, Zoom guys, thank you for joining us. So this week I would invite you to go forth knowing it's your third day and say yes. God bless. See you next week. Sorry.